Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Bellingham Unitarian Fellowship. I'm Reverend Paul Beckel. Buff is a community without conformity, offering respite from our overwhelming world and mutual reinforcement as we strive to make it better. This is a place to make friends, explore and live our values, and become our authentic selves within a network of support. Since the Unitarians and the Universalists merged in the 1960s, we have found a variety of imperfect ways to describe our commonly held commitments, values, and principles. Equally important, of course, are the sources from which these have sprung. Some, of course, are probably baked into our DNA, but largely, each of us has come to our own conclusions, commitments, values, and principles through our own personal experience. Today, my colleague, Tessie Mandeville, Reverend Tessie Mandeville, and I will reflect on experiences in our lives that have been sources for our own development and understanding of what matters and what to do about it. This week, I sent a letter to Buff members and friends announcing my retirement next summer. At that point, I will have served UU congregations for 30 years, 11 here at Buff. I can't thank you enough for being with me. Jane and I will move to Minneapolis, where we have 3 children and now a grandchild. Jane's mom, Mary Jane Brunt, who is also a member of Buff, will be moving there next month. There will be plenty of time ahead to get ready for all of that, but I do want to make one practical request. Jane's direct boss does know about this, but she'd very much appreciate having a chance to share her news with her people at her own pace. So it's very hard to control the spread of such news, but please help slow it down by not mentioning this or even implying it on your social media, or if you know anyone who knows anyone who knows anyone connected to any school in Whatcom County. I mean, seriously, if even for a few bits of time, please try, please. Jane will very much appreciate it. Change can evoke a wide range of emotions, reflections on the past, anticipation of the future. Today, let's keep it light, and in the spirit of this week's equinox, balanced. As you listen to the choir now, feel the magic combination of a nostalgic tone and an up-tempo leaping forward with friends.
Kid, you're on the offbeats. Oh, okay, bye.
Hi, it's me again. I'm Kirsty Nelson. I'm on the auction committee. Here to remind you of the auction date, November 2. I always find it easier to remember something if it's set to music. So I've written some lyrics as a reminder. They are in the order of service if you'd care to read along. And my thanks to Melanie, Grace, Tom, Jim, and Jan for joining in the fun.
The blessing I offer us this morning for our chalice lighting is written by Christine Wolters Paintner, the abbess at the Abbey of the Arts, a virtual monastery and global community. May everything in creation become a catalyst for your self-understanding. Let the sacred whispers carried on the wind invite you to release what is not necessary. Let the breezes help your wings to ascend, the sparrows to remember your flock. Let the divine fire that burns in your heart kindle you to deeper compassion, sunlight to seek illumination. Let the rivers and seas support you in allowing spirit to flow through your life in new ways. Embracing the rise and fall within you, let the pine cones contain an epiphany. The forest asks you to embrace your truth once again, and each smooth stone a revelation. Let the moon sing of quiet miracles, like those which reveal and conceal the world every day right before your eyes. May you make time to listen to the elements in their wisdom, revealing the Holy One's face and the sacred direction for your one precious life. And now let's say our covenant together. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service gives it life. Celebrating our diversity and joined by a quest for truth, we work for peace and honor all creation. This is our covenant. Our opening hymn this morning is from Brian Wren, a prolific hymn writer known as quite controversial in his hymnody because he deconstructs the masculine, power-based language of many traditional hymns. And in so doing, he became an early supporter of inclusive language in hymns. And we have 8 of his hymns in our gray hymnal. So this morning, as you are able, let's rise in body and spirit and sing number 317, We Are Not Our Own. Sing to you as you take your leave this morning. We hold you in our love. We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. May your hearts be at peace as you go. To nurture the spark of your precious life, we hold you in our love as you go.
A few announcements before we go on. One, I hope that all of you will join us downstairs for coffee hour afterward. It's just out those doors and down the steps. Also, next week, we will have a potluck on top of coffee hour. And every time I say, come even if you haven't brought anything, there will always be more than enough, and y'all got to make that true. Also, the chairs have arrived. We have some new chairs for the sanctuary. Unfortunately, we do not have personnel and volunteers to figure out what to do with them. So you'll notice they're out there in the narthex. And I would love for somebody to put together a crew, not just to unpack them and get them in here, but the greater organizational charge is to move enough pews wherever the pews might go into the larger community so that everything still fits. Rod?
Morning, everyone. I'm speaking as a member of the Buff Adult RE Religious Education Committee. Other members include Patricia Conover, Catherine Allen, Tom Nicholas, Bonnie Finney, Natalie Johnson, and Stephanie Sarver. I want to share briefly what has been happening with the program and invite you to join our efforts. Last year, Adult RE developed a mission statement for the program. We conducted a survey among the congregation to solicit interest and determine what areas of RE might be included in future curriculums. This year, we are moving beyond the startup phase into a sustaining phase that allows us to offer classes and workshops with a variety of spiritual interests. Our program depends on inputs from all of us. Whether the contribution might be suggested RE topics or volunteering to lead a class, we certainly invite you to contact any of us for more information. Typical RE classes led by a volunteer leader. Our vision is for these classes to consist of discussion and breakout groups generated by information presented by the class leader. You might think of the Adult RE program as a healthy and fun way to stretch your spiritual muscles while getting to know fellow congregants and make new friends. We offer a relaxing atmosphere where mutual support and respect is our paramount aim. And lastly, we have posted the fall and winter schedules in various places around the building here at Buff. Also, please look for announcements in weekly updates, Buff News, and online at buff.org. The first class, UU 101, starts 2 weeks from now. We have a sign-up table and an information desk available this morning after the service. Please stop by for more information. A final comment. While we welcome contributions, donations of $10, that is certainly not a requirement. We are an economically diverse congregation, and we know some can contribute and some cannot. Do not allow your inability to contribute to not come and join us. Thanks for your attention.
Hi, everyone. Hello. My name is Wendy Howard. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a part of Buff's lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer plus group, now called Uplift, formerly known as Interweave. And tomorrow is Celebrate Bisexuality Plus Day. And why, you might ask, do bisexuals need their own celebration? They get to celebrate Pride Day just like everyone else in the LGBTQ community, and they even get their own capital B in the title. In the LGBTQ world, bisexuals are the middle child, the forgotten one, the misunderstood one. We're seen as lesbian or gay sometimes and straight at others. Probably many people here at Buff see me as straight. I am a femme, straight-appearing woman in a relationship with a man. But I came out as a lesbian when I was 20 years old. Over the years, I was in lesbian gay student groups and other social groups. I stayed on separatist women's land. I rode at the front of a pride parade with dykes on bikes. I sang, thank you, I sang in an all-lesbian choir. I fell in love, I got my heart broken, I lived to love again. I was immersed in and supported by lesbian culture. But part of that culture was biphobic. I was, and still am, biphobic. I wouldn't date a bisexual woman. They're not committed to queer community. They're flaky. They betray their lovers who thought of them as lesbians. They run off and get involved with men. They want to bring their straight lovers to queer events. They're basically straight women at Queer Pride who say they're queer because they want to be part of the party. Except that they're bisexual, she can be queer because most of her relationships have been with women. But that other bisexual over there, nope. She can't be queer. She's not queer enough because she's married to a man and only dated a few women when she was in college. And when the right-wing fascists come after us, she won't be with us. She'll be hiding behind a man. So, 37 years after I came out as a lesbian, I walked into Buff and met a really nice man, a man I could be friends with. We talked for hours. We spent a lot of time together. He got me, and I enjoyed being with him. This was very weird. We flirted. I freaked out. I smiled at him all the time. I talked to my therapist. Sure, I did. I apologized to him for flirting, as I am a lesbian, and we were just friends. And then we hugged and talked about love, and now apparently I'm bisexual. My closest friends, lesbians, want me to be happy. Other friends are confused. My family is very confused. My queer niece is disappointed. A few friends said they didn't want to talk to me anymore. So I certainly need Celebrate Bisexuals Plus Day. The plus is there for those of us who are attracted to people who challenge the gender binary. It's a day for advocacy and education in queer and straight communities, a day to practice accepting myself, a day to remember that love is love, and also a good reason to have a party, maybe dance to Lady Gaga, sing along with Freddie Mercury, all those other celebrity bisexuals. So we'll see how it goes tomorrow.
Thank you, Wendy. That was fabulous, as our people like to say. Pilgrimage is an ancient call and practice. It is a journey into the unknown where a person goes in search of a new or expanded meaning about their self, others, the higher good, or God. We can go many miles away on a pilgrimage, like the Camino de Santiago, and sometimes we don't even have to leave home because the pilgrimage is an internal journey. We can open ourselves up to God's work through our inner and outer journeys in the everyday. Planes, trains, and automobiles are not required. I have come to understand my entire life as a pilgrimage. So perhaps I should just start from the beginning. I was born in Charleston, South Carolina on May 6th, 1969. I was raised inland in the small town of Jedburgh with one Southern Baptist church. I made my first visit there on May 18th at 12 days old. My mother was the church secretary. My father was a deacon. My granny was the organist. It seemed I was always at church. At age 2, I could say the prayer, God is great, God is good. Let us thank him for our food. By his hands we all are fed. Give us, Lord, our daily bread. By age 5, I was singing solos in the church service, accompanied by my granny on the organ. At age 6, I walked down the aisle, prayed with the preacher, and accepted Jesus into my heart, and I was baptized later that month. At age 8, I had a very clear sense of God speaking to me and about my life. And I had a conversation with my preacher and told him that I wanted to be a preacher. And he said, "Tessie, girls are missionaries, boys are preachers." As I would come to learn, the Southern Baptist Convention could not abide women in leadership, nor could they abide lesbians. And I was destined to be both. So I didn't need a third strike. I was already out, already wandering in search of expanded meaning. In her book, The Soul of a Pilgrim, Christine Walters Paintner draws from the poet Antonio Machado, who says that the way is made by walking. She then goes on to say, we put one foot in front of the other, and the next step is revealed as we are in movement. This demands a great deal of trust and listening for the whispers of the divine along the way. The Latin root of the word pilgrim is peregrini, which means stranger. We go on pilgrimage to become strangers to all that is familiar, to break out of our routine vision of the world and discover something new. This requires that we stretch, travel to wild edges, and risk being uncomfortable. It is in that discomfort that we encounter new dimensions of our own capacity and new faces of the sacred. It seems so much of my pilgrimage has been and still is about listening for my own voice and the whispers of the divine. Journeying beyond any one creed or tradition and undoing bad theology along the way. It has been about trusting the path that I am on and listening to the God of my understanding, even as that God and my understanding has grown deeper and more beautiful and more inclusive and more expansive and more mysterious than I could have ever imagined. The opportunities to see life, love, and God through a new lens has saved me over and over again, even as it has revealed how I am worlds apart from where I started. Still and yet mysteriously held in love. The writer Mark Nepo says, "To journey without being changed is to be a nomad. To change without journeying is to be a chameleon. To journey and be transformed by the journey is to be a pilgrim." The pilgrimage I am on has much more to do with circles and spirals than straight lines between 2 points. It is a journey that keeps asking me to let go, to trust, to be broken open. Its path went from the deep south to San Francisco and the queer mecca of the Castro, It came full circle when my call to ministry was affirmed and I was ordained by Metropolitan Community Churches, a Christian church that ministers primarily in the LGBTQ+ communities. It did a beautiful spiral dance when it led me beyond the Christian church and into Unitarian Universalism, where I am free to draw from a big river of sources and inspiration. My pilgrimage has included more than one dark night of the soul, where my faith was alchemized in the crucible of suffering. My path has circled through congregations as a parish minister, through hospitals as a chaplain, and is currently doing a gentle distillation of it all as an interfaith spiritual director, where I accompany people one-on-one on their own spiritual pilgrimages. My pilgrimage has been blessed by the wide circle of friends I've made over the years, by being a foster mother, and by being the partner of my beloved, Lisa, with whom I've just celebrated our 25th anniversary. Pilgrimage is an ancient call and practice. We can go many miles away on pilgrimage, and sometimes we don't even have to leave home because the pilgrimage is an internal journey. The way is made by walking, literally or metaphorically. We put one foot in front of the other, and the next step is revealed only as we are in movement. This demands a great deal of trust and listening for the whispers of the divine along the way. May we all have listening hearts to hear how we are being called into the next season of our lives. May we have the courage to say yes, not to the well-worn paths, but to the path that we must forge as we find our way forward. Blessed be.
I grew up in northern Minnesota, half an hour from Lake Itasca. I'm sure you recognize Itasca as a contraction of the Latin veritas caput. True head. You take veritas, well, the second two syllables of veritas and the first syllable of caput, and you get Itasca. Veritas or Itas caput. It's a convoluted name, but a magical place where Lake Itasca spills into a little stream. It's the spot sought for centuries, but identified less than 200 years ago. The source, the true head of the Mississippi River. There are scattered stones on which to cross the stream, but it's only 20 feet to the other side, and the water is only a few inches deep. So most often little kids and adults brave the waters in bare feet. I was one of them many times. I felt a sense of belonging in this enchanted place, a feeling which somehow expanded to everything connected to it, especially because our farmland was adjacent to the Leaf River, which flowed into the Crow Wing, which flowed into the Mississippi. Our family did a lot of canoeing on the Leaf and the Crow Wing, but never made it to their confluence with the Mississippi. Still, we heard over and over again from my dad about his dream to someday float from home all the way down to New Orleans. But too many other adventures beckoned, not the least of them intellectual and religious adventures. Beginning with my baptism as an infant, I was deeply immersed in the waters of Catholicism. But only later did I fathom the depths of meaning in the life and teachings of Jesus. It took many years of wading through the weeds of blind obedience to religious authorities before I came to understand that Jesus' most essential teaching, that we love our neighbors as ourselves, especially the marginalized, could only be accomplished by rejecting blind obedience to religious authorities. Yes, he was a classic mythological trickster character. He did not tell trite morality tales with obvious conclusions. Each lesson only slowly becomes clear when we're willing to let the paradox sink in. The solution to his riddles was always the opposite of what you expected. It all came down to reject hypocrisy in yourself as well as in others. Don't just follow a bunch of rules meant to maintain the status quo. Serve instead the living spirit of justice. When I was 9, I read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, that lighthearted romp on a raft down the Mississippi with a runaway slave and its morally subversive conclusion. Of course, I identified with the small-town, low-born, naive, but very cocky child on the lookout for adventure. I was as stunned as Huck was when he and I reached the climax together, when after a dangerous journey, after his companion Jim is recaptured, Huck realizes that he has to. He has to. The only thing he can do in order to feel any sense of integrity is to do the opposite of everything he's been taught. Huck has to steal Jim back from his captors, whatever the consequences. And we're not just talking about earthly consequences. No, Huck frets. People acts as I'd been acting about Jim goes to everlasting fire. And still he concludes, "All right, I'll go to hell." Whoa. I vividly remember a few minutes after reading that sentence, face down on the ugly yellow living room carpet, turning the last page and closing the green fabric cover of that book, and knowing, like Tessie very early, knowing that I'd discovered my life's purpose. Mark Twain's tricksterish, sublime irony confronted my assumptions, demanded my attention, invited me to get comfortable with the discomfort that comes with any honest examination of conscience. If only I could speak such prophetic words, deceptively interspersed with humor and surprise, to get beneath people's defenses and excuses. I attended St. Anne's Grade School and Crozier Seminary High School. Crozier was in an even smaller town, still further into the big woods, where I had the time of my life with friends 24/7. Here I was more deeply immersed than ever into the life of the church, attending Mass and Vespers 7 days a week, learning to read Latin and lead prayer services, and be encouraged on a regular basis to consider a religious vocation. But no one I knew wanted anything to do with celibacy. There were only a few people in the class above me and the class behind me that became priests. And how could I become a priest when I was well on my way toward becoming a nun? That's N-O-N-E, nun, a label demographers have had to create for the hodgepodge of unlabelables within the fastest growing religious group in the United States. I attended Creighton University, a Jesuit school in Omaha, where I continued to study theology. But I also took all of the basic science prerequisites for medical school. I remember the moment it occurred to me that I had to choose a side, religion or science. And it wasn't a question of what to study, it was a question of what to believe in. And it felt like an either or question. And at the time, science was the obvious answer. And yet, even as I came to understand myself as an atheist, I continued to serve as a reader at Catholic Mass and a leader of retreats for our Catholic student social justice group. One summer, I traveled with a team, including medical and nursing professionals and wannabes, to a remote village in the Dominican Republic. For lack of a better word, you might call this a mission. But I vividly remember Father Ernesto's charge to us: you are not here to proselytize. And while the services you're offering will be valuable, don't kid yourself that in a couple of months you are going to transform anything. He continued, in my mind, the best thing that can come of this is that you will go back home inspired by what you learn here about poverty and use your voices and leverage your abundant resources to be of use wherever you are for the rest of your lives. Another summer, I took an even deeper cultural immersion experience in the United States Marine Corps Officer Candidate School. I found out too late that that wasn't what they thought I was here for. They did not appreciate at all my observation that my drill sergeant was the one who looked like he needed to be doing sit-ups. They quickly ground out of me my sense that I was above it all. The scariest moment was the time out in the woods I set my rifle down against a tree and then turned around, and it wasn't there. After a couple of hours of yelling, my captain let me know that he had taken it himself, and I was assigned not push-ups, but to write a page about why a soldier should never set down their rifle. I don't know if it was defiance or just that I was bored by the topic, but I wove an answer into an allegory with an ant and a grasshopper. Now my captain was even more disgusted. He asked, "How could you possibly be of use in the Marine Corps?" I bumbled, maybe I could be a chaplain? And then for a few days, I actually considered the possibility. After all, I had already met a few atheists in foxholes. Throughout high school and college, I hitchhiked everywhere, from northern Minnesota to and from Omaha, St. Louis, Cheyenne, Chicago, Memphis, Miami. And I found myself over and over as if in a confessional booth, listening quietly to drivers pontificating about their life philosophies, their ethical convictions, and their hang-ups. And here was one of the primary experiences that led me to reject any one-size-fits-all kind of doctrine. Every life story was full of non sequiturs, and every deeply held belief system, especially those I felt most compelled to buy into, contradicted each other. And so gradually, my prickly either-or thinking, my determination to develop a unified theory of all truth and meaning, gave way to an appreciation of messiness and complexity and diverse expressions of the ineffable. Then, a semester-long detour to Hunter College in New York City. I took classes in existentialism and clinical biochemistry. Career-wise, still torn in different directions, but also reveling in the intriguing juxtapositions. In New York, I saw a show on Broadway called Big River, a musical version of The Adventures of Huck and Jim. And while the message wasn't new, I was transported by its expression in vehement, demanded, uplifting music. And again, I felt, this is the kind of thing that makes me come alive. What a gift it would be if only I could find some context within which to share this energy. Throw in a National Endowment for the Humanities Summer Fellowship at Emory University in Atlanta to study, surprise, the prophetic irony of Mark Twain and Jonathan Swift. And now we're through my first 3 years of college. In year 4, I earned a bachelor's degree in philosophy at Catholic University Leuven in a small medieval town in Belgium. The university had been operating since the 1400s and prided itself as the home of Desiderius Erasmus, a 16th century priest who was always a thorn in the side of the church. Erasmus was deeply engaged with his contemporary apostate, Martin Luther, but chose to stay within the Catholic Church, working toward reform from within. At Leuven, classes continued for an entire academic year with no tests, no quizzes, no papers. Then 2 weeks at the end of final oral exams. It was pretty intense. I remember studying late one night, trying to remember the difference between inverse, obverse, and converse logical expressions, and why Descartes had to couch his theories in piety in order to please his bishop. And finally, the epiphany. This was all a bunch of nonsense. Though maybe I felt that way because I was distracted by this raging brainstorm, frantically scribbling out an elaborate ritual for parents and their chosen community to welcome a child into the world. incorporating everything I'd come to understand about epistemology, ontology, mysticism, philosophy of religion, and philosophy of human nature. Even though I had no name for such a ceremony, even though I could not imagine in my wildest dreams that there would be a religious community within which it might take place. And even though at age 22, it would still be another 12 months before I became a father. A few years later, now in Minneapolis, in the midst of losing legal custody of my son, I stumbled across a community of misfits who assembled every Sunday in this beautiful place with pews and an organ and soaring glass walls. They called themselves the First Unitarian Society. I could not have survived that difficult time without the supportive friendships I found there. I also came across a term which resonated with my till then uneasy combination of reverence and reason. Religious humanism. That kind of fits. There was some irony in finding a home in a movement with many who called themselves spiritual but not religious, even as I thought of myself as religious but not spiritual. We all have different meanings for these words, and I find myself still juggling them in different combinations. One thread, though, that carries on is my recognition that this evolutionary process cannot take place in a vacuum without ongoing sources of inspiration and people to hold me accountable. A couple of months ago, I read a new novel, James, by Percival Everett. James is a retelling of that famous, fraught, meandering pilgrimage through the eyes of a black man who chooses a name for himself, James. A story that takes irony beyond cynicism. A story of dignity, agency, familial bonds, and hope. Whatever direction we may go, may each of us continue to grow in such wisdom and practice. Here's a song from the musical Big River with Tessie, the voice of Jim, and me as Huck.
I see the same stars through my window that you see through yours, but we're worlds apart, and I see
I see the sunrise in your eyes that you see in mine, but we're worlds apart.
I see the same stars through my window. You see through yours, but we're worlds apart. Worlds apart. And you see the same skies through brown eyes that I see through blue. Worlds apart. Worlds apart. Just like the earth. Just like the sun.
Two worlds together
are better than
one. I see the friendship in your eyes that you see in mine, but we're worlds apart. Worlds apart. Together we're worlds apart. And a mockingbird sings in the old yonder tree. Twaddle-dee-ah-dee-dee-dee.
Once a month to put our principles into practice, well, to support an organization that puts our principles into practice, we take up a collection for an organization in our local community. Erica, would you like to tell us about Humanitas, one of our own programs that I will encourage you to be very generous toward. After Erica describes the program, when the ushers come forward, any cash that you put into the basket will go to Humanitas, and any checks you write should be made out to Buff with, in the memo line, Humanitas. Only if you have something that you specifically want to go as a pledge to Buff. Also, make it out to Buff, but in the memo line, say pledge or whatever. Those of you on Zoom, there will be a slide up to describe how you too contribute. Thank you for your generosity.
Thanks, Paul. Humanitas. There are some of you who perhaps don't quite know what it is and what we do. Well, Humanitas is an alms program in the old style. That means we help people with small amounts of financial assistance. Things like gasoline to fill their tanks so they can go to work, or perhaps have heat in their car because that's where they live. Sometimes it's food. And nowadays, $50 gets you about one sack of groceries, as we all know. Sometimes it's a utility bill, something much larger. And for that, we work with a group of churches. There are 4 other churches who do the same things that we do. And a client will come to us, get a pledge, card, then go around to the other churches to collect the larger amount to make the payment. No cash changes hands. It's all a matter of vouchers and pledges. As of October 30th of this year, we will have been doing this for 11 years. We have helped something over 3,000 clients in those years. And you have made this possible by your generous donations at these services once a year, through our $10 a month club, and with checks that are sent directly to Humanitas on occasion. So, as you pull out your checkbooks and begin to rummage into your purse, and you dig down looking for a pen, and you encounter that $5 bill that's crumpled up in the very bottom. It's been there since March. Because everything's on credit cards these days. And maybe you'll find this dusty collection of coins that are rattling around down there. A dime, a couple of quarters. You were going to use them for the parking meters, which also take cards these days. Pull out that paper bill, pull out that loose change, and drop it in the basket. Then, notice for a moment how it makes you feel. Notice that little endorphin hit. When you can say to yourself, I have helped someone today. Then after the service, we'll all go downstairs for that hot cup of coffee or tea. Perhaps we'll even get lucky and snag a cookie before the kids get them all. You'll wander around, chatting with friends, catching up, and suddenly you'll find yourself standing next to the Humanitas table over by the wall. And you'll say to yourself, why not? And you'll sign up for the $10 a month club. And again, you'll feel that little surge that says, I've done a good thing. But this time, it will be different. This time, that little endorphin hit will be repeated every month. Every time you look at your bank account, you'll see that $10 that you dropped and know that it went for people in need. Think of it, a year's supply of smiles for the low, low price of $10 a month. In seriousness, I ask you to think about the people that we serve. You will be helping them make it from day to day. As a side note, you might also think about joining us in the Humanitas group. We are in need of a second person fluent in Spanish. We're beginning to get refugees from Latin American countries who come to this country with no English whatsoever. And Google Translate is rather awkward to work with. That too would be a good thing. And it comes with smiles guaranteed. Thank you.
In the changing seasons of our lives, may we honor the sources of our values, dare to apply their lessons to new circumstances, and open our arms to new streams of inspiration, new sources to enrich and transform us. I appreciate how patient you've been with me over the years in sometimes not so clear instruction giving and other things. Before y'all move for Circle Round, I'd like to thank you last week for many more of you coming for the inner circle, but it really became more of an inner buttonhole. And I'd like to suggest that maybe you step back into the pews. It'll still be imperfect, maybe like a sunflower leaf or something, but you know, make it a little bit more like that. And it's also going to be a bit of a web with little strands here and there, and that's just fine. You know, I love that song. You know, it was in my ordination, but it's already 20 till. So. Okay, so yeah, let's go to circle round. Let's form our circles. Wow. Okay, so now this song is in the gray hymnal actually, and I just didn't notice until a few weeks ago. It doesn't have that repeat line at the end. Buff is so special that not only have you figured out how rich and powerful it is to have the circle, but the extra line. What we haven't really figured out yet is how to get there, and what next when we have gotten there. So I used the wrong word last week. I said, let's keep it at a trot. Maybe I was just trying to go to the opposite extreme of a dirge. And I definitely don't think we need to race walk, but just how about a steady canter? Now this goes all the way through the main portion of the song, like, circle for each soul, for the children of our children, keep the circle whole. So all the way through we have the same pace. And then a very gradual slowing. And to mark that dramatic, soulful contrast, catch your breath, take a couple of beats, and then we'll go into the final for the children of our children. Notice that these are... I'm almost there. I've only had 11 years. No, I'm almost there, I'll just say it. We didn't sing My Life Flows On an Endless Song. Give me a break. This goes on an endless song. Those last few notes are descending and slowing, and you might think that they're sad, but notice that they're uplifting. You a big smile on your face, and you look around at each other, and you brighten even as you slow. Let's go for it.